So, let's just review the latest advancement in generative AI today,
Mhm.
specifically this latest concept of attention residuals. Because usually when we talk about a massive leap forward in artificial intelligence, I mean, the conversation just goes straight to the hardware,
Oh, absolutely. It's always about, who has the biggest supercomputer or who just bought another 100,000 GPUs.
Exactly, or who's building a data center the size of a small city.
Yeah.
But what if the key to the next generation of AI isn't actually about plugging in more machines? What if the real bottleneck holding all these models back is just, well, a math problem?
Yeah, a fundamental flaw in the actual architecture that the industry has basically been ignoring for almost a decade now.
Right. And that is exactly our mission for you today in this deep dive. We are unpacking a massive new advancement that addresses exactly this. We've got a stack of sources today, primarily this brand new technical report that dropped on March 16th, 2026.
Yeah, published by the Kimi team over at Moonshot AI.
Right, the paper is called Attention Residuals, and we're also pulling from some really fascinating tech commentary that's circulating right now about the massive industry fallout from this release.
It really is causing an earthquake
Uh-huh.
because this open source drop claims to fix a foundational glitch that has existed in quite literally every transformer model since like 2017.
Since the very beginning of the modern era of LLMs. And the kicker here for anyone listening who builds or uses these models is that this fix potentially gives you the quality of a model trained with 25% more compute.
Which is huge.
Right, but you get it without actually having to spend a single dime on extra hardware.
Okay, so let's unpack this. What is actually broken in the current models?
So to understand how Moonshot AI pulled this off, we really have to look under the hood at the engine block of modern large language models. The architecture of your GPT-4s or your Claudes, it relies really heavily on something called standard residual connections.
And that's usually combined with a technique called prenorm. Like these are the absolute de facto building blocks. If you look at the standard math formula from the paper, it represents how information moves from one layer of the neural network to the next.
Right, how layer 1 talks to layer 2.
Exactly. So the equation is essentially this. The output of the current layer, let's call it HLL, equals the output of the previous layer, H sub L minus 1, plus the functional transformation of that previous layer.
Okay, so just to translate that a bit, layer 2 is taking whatever layer 1 did and just adding its own new computational work right on top of it. It's just purely additive.
Yes, purely additive. And historically, this was hailed as a brilliant solution. It acts as what they call a gradient highway.
A gradient highway.
Yeah, so when you train a model, you use these signals called gradients to update the network's weights. And by simply adding the layers together, these gradients can bypass the really complex mathematical transformations by traveling down these identity mapping.
So it stops the signal from just dying out.
Exactly. It prevents the learning signal from vanishing, which is what finally allowed developers to train very, very deep networks stably in the first place. But the Moonshot team highlighted a critical flaw in this design.
Which is what?
Well, when you unroll this recurrence across dozens or, hundreds of layers, you reveal this massive structural issue. It's uniform additive accumulation.
Uniform additive accumulation, meaning every single layer receives the exact same uniformly weighted sum of all the prior layer outputs.
You got it.
So by the time the data reaches, say, layer 100, that layer is just receiving a giant unweighted soup of layers 1 through 99.
Exactly, and the math proves that out perfectly. Because of this unweighted accumulation, the magnitudes of these hidden states, they just grow completely out of control as you go deeper into the network.
Like a snowball effect.
Yeah, mathematically, the paper notes this grows at a rate of O of L, where L is the depth or the total number of layers.
Yeah.
And here's where that prenorm technique actually makes things worse.
Wait, prenorm makes it worse? I thought that was supposed to stabilize things.
It is. Prenorm is used to normalize the values to keep the overall math stable so the model, doesn't just crash during training. But if the overall values are kept stable, while the underlying additive sum keeps growing at a rate of O of L, you get this massive dilution effect.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, the relative contribution of each individual early layer gets progressively smaller and smaller as the denominator just keeps growing.
I think of it like 50 people shouting in the same room, right? The first person starts talking, and then the second person just yells right over them.
Right.
And by the time you get to the 50th person, you're just blindly adding every new voice on top of the last one. Eventually, the information just turns into deafening noise.
That is a perfect way to visualize it.
Because if the model is trying to solve some complex logic puzzle at layer 50, it has absolutely no way to pick out the one specific voice it actually needs to hear from, say, layer 2. That early layer information just gets totally buried under the sheer mathematical weight of all the later thoughts.
And empirically, I mean, we've actually known about this symptom for a while. It's crazy. You can take a fully trained, massive LLM, and you can prune or, literally delete a significant fraction of its layers with almost zero loss in performance.
Wait, really? You can just delete layers and it still works?
Yeah, and logically, that shouldn't happen if every layer was contributing meaningfully. The network is essentially just suffocating its own early thoughts. Prior attempts to fix this, they just sort of tweak the additive path. But Moonshot AI realized they needed to fundamentally change how the layers talk to each other.
So how did they do it?
Well, they observed a formal duality between this depth-wise accumulation in transformers and the sequential recurrence we used to see in old-school recurrent neural networks, or RNNs.
Oh, right, RNNs. They used to really struggle to remember things from the beginning of a long sequence of text. And we fixed that by giving them an attention mechanism over the sequence.
Exactly. And the Moonshot team looked at modern transformers and realized they are struggling with the exact same problem, just in a different direction. They're struggling to remember things across their own depth.
Okay, so if the problem is that layer 50 is being drowned out by layers 1 through 49, how do you teach the model to ignore the noise and just listen to the one layer that actually matters?
You generalize the process to depth-wise Softmax attention. They call the solution full attention residuals, or AttnRes. Instead of the current layer just being the fixed, lazy sum of all the previous layers, the new formula uses a weighted sum.
A weighted sum?
Yeah, it looks like this. The output of the current layer equals the sum of all previous layer outputs multiplied by a specific attention weight. They represent this weight in the paper as alpha.
So we are moving from a formula that is just blind addition to a formula that is multiplication based on relevance. Okay, so this alpha represents the Softmax attention weights, meaning instead of mixing every single voice equally, the model now uses a single learned pseudo-query vector. I think the paper denotes this as W sub L for each layer.
That's right.
And the current layer uses this incredibly lightweight query vector to selectively look back in time, scan all the previous layers, and retrieve the exact prior representation it needs based on the specific input it's processing.
What's fascinating here is the implication of replacing those fixed unit weights with dynamic input-dependent weights. Because they use a softmax function, it mathematically forces all the attention weights to add up to exactly 1.0 or 100%.
Right, it's a zero-sum game.
Exactly. So if layer 50 realizes that the critical piece of information for solving a coding problem happened back in layer 12, it can assign a 90% weight specifically to layer 12. And it just assigns the remaining 10% across the other 48 layers, effectively muting their noise. The architecture shifts from a blind additive pileup into a highly selective, content-aware retrieval system. It effectively gives the network a memory of its own internal thinking process.
That is brilliant. But hold on, wait. Let me play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
If I'm training a massive 100-layer model, and layer 100 has to constantly look back and run complex softmax attention math on 99 previous high-dimensional vectors, I mean, wouldn't the GPUs literally melt?
They absolutely would.
Yeah, because the memory footprint of forcing every single layer to attend to every single preceding layer individually, that sounds like an absolute computational nightmare. How is that actually efficient for large-scale training?
It wouldn't be. And you've hit on the exact engineering hurdle that normally kills these elegant mathematical theories in the lab. If you run full attention residuals naively, the memory footprint scales at O of LD.
Where L is the number of layers and D is the dimension size.
Right. And for a modern multi-billion parameter model with massive dimension sizes, that is completely unscalable for training. It would require way too much VRAM. But, the Moonshot team didn't just publish a theoretical math paper. They engineered a highly practical system fix called block AttnRes.
Block AttnRes. Okay, so how do we partition this to save memory without losing that selective retrieval ability we just talked about?
So instead of a layer attending to every single preceding layer individually, the architecture groups the preceding layers into blocks.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, let's say you group them into blocks of 10. Now, layer 100 isn't looking back and calculating weights for 99 individual layers. It's only attending over 9 block-level representations.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, by grouping them, this reduces the memory footprint from O of LD down to O of ND, where N is the number of blocks.
That makes perfect sense. It's like instead of reading every single page of a 99-page document to find an answer, the model just reads 9 executive summaries. And once it evaluates the summaries and finds the one that matters, it only pulls from that specific block. We get the massive qualitative benefit of letting the model search its own memory, but we drastically cut down the computational cost.
The memory savings from the block grouping is massive, but they actually had to go a step further to handle the communication overhead between the GPUs during training. Because to make block AttnRes a truly practical drop-in replacement for standard residuals, they implemented 2 specific system details.
Okay, what are they?
Cache-based pipeline communication and a 2-phase computation strategy.
Okay, let's break down those mechanisms for the developers listening. What does cache-based pipeline communication actually do?
Right, so when you train massive models, the layers are split up across different parallel processors. If those processors have to constantly stop what they're doing and talk to each other to recalculate those block-level representations over and over, you create a massive communication bottleneck.
Right, the GPUs just sit idle waiting for data to arrive over the network.
Exactly. So cache-based pipeline communication means the system calculates the block representation just once, stores it in a cache, and simply passes that cached block cleanly down the pipeline to the next set of processors.
Super efficient. And what about the 2-phase computation strategy? Because I'm guessing if the GPUs are trying to generate the query vector and do the attention math all at the exact same time, it's like a restaurant where every waiter is also trying to cook the food and seat the guests simultaneously. Just a total bottleneck.
That is exactly the issue. So 2-phase computation separates the workflow. In phase 1, the generation of the query vectors taking the orders, in your analogy, that happens independently.
Okay.
Then in phase 2, the actual attention aggregation, the cooking, is executed. By separating these phases, they optimize how the GPUs schedule the math, ensuring the processors are constantly fed with work and never bottlenecked by cross-dependencies.
Wow.
The result is that block AttnRes preserves almost all the performance gains of full AttnRes, but the overhead becomes practically negligible.
Okay, so theoretical math and clever system engineering are amazing, but, the proof is always in the parameters. Does this actually work when you scale it up from a lab experiment to a massive frontier-level model?
It does. The testing ground they used was incredibly rigorous. They integrated attention residuals into their Kimi linear architecture.
Kimi linear.
Yeah. This is a model with 48 billion total parameters. It uses a mixture of experts setup, meaning about 3 billion parameters are activated at any given time for a specific token, and they pre-train this model on a massive data set of 1.4 trillion tokens.
So this wasn't just a toy model. This was a full-scale, real-world training run.
Absolutely.
And we should look at the ablation studies they ran. Because, for anyone listening, an ablation study is basically when researchers take a completed model and start removing or replacing specific parts of it, just to prove that their new fancy feature is actually the thing causing the improvement, not just random chance or better training data. So what did the ablations prove here?
The ablations were definitive in validating the specific benefit of this content-dependent depth-wise selection. We talked earlier about that pre-norm dilution problem.
Right, the uncontrolled O of L growth that just drowns out the early layers.
Exactly. The ablation studies proved that attention residuals successfully mitigated it. When they analyzed the output magnitudes across the depth of the Kimi model, the values were vastly more uniform. The gradient distribution, which is the actual learning signal the model uses to improve, it was perfectly balanced across the early, middle, and late layers.
So the network was finally listening to its whole self instead of just the loudest voices at the end of the room.
Exactly.
And the benchmark results from the paper are just staggering. Because the cache and pipeline optimizations work so well, they achieved all of this with less than a 4% training overhead. But the performance jumps were massive. I mean, they saw a plus 7.5-point gain on GPQA Diamond.
Which is wild. GPQA Diamond is an incredibly punishing benchmark. It tests PhD-level hard science reasoning across physics, biology, and chemistry. It is literally designed to stump human experts.
Yeah.
So a 7.5-point jump at that level of complexity, purely from swapping out the residual connections, that is a massive architectural validation.
They also saw consistent gains across MMLU, human eval for coding, and various math benchmarks. So what does this all mean for you? When you aggregate all these results, the paper states it yields roughly a 1.25x compute efficiency.
Yeah.
In the simplest possible terms, you are getting the intelligence, the reasoning capability, and the output quality of a model that was trained with roughly 25% more compute. But you didn't actually have to pay for those extra GPUs.
You are extracting significantly more intelligence per slop of compute. And, if we pull back from the technical brilliance of the paper for a second, we really have to look at the macroeconomic earthquake this represents for the AI industry as a whole.
Yeah, this brings us to the most fascinating detail from the tech commentary we sourced. Moonshot AI, the lab behind this, is a Chinese lab, and they didn't patent this math. They didn't lock it behind some expensive enterprise API. They open-sourced absolutely everything. The repository, the mathematical paper, the underlying code.
Yeah.
Anyone listening to this deep dive right now could go to GitHub, download Attention Residuals, and plug it into their own training stack tomorrow morning.
It fundamentally disrupts the economic moat that closed labs are desperately trying to build right now.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we're watching a philosophical battle play out in real time.
Right.
On one side, you have closed labs who are raising tens of billions of dollars to brute force the path to artificial general intelligence. Their entire strategy relies on building ever larger GPU clusters. They are betting that scale is all you need.
Just feed the beast more silicon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And on the other side, you have open labs shipping architectural mathematical breakthroughs for free that artificially increase compute efficiency by 25%.
Let's put this into historical context, because it's a detail from our sources that really underscores the gravity of this release. Remember, the last time a Chinese lab open-sourced something this fundamentally disruptive to model efficiency, NVIDIA lost $600 billion in market cap in a single day.
Because the hardware market is entirely predicated on software inefficiency.
Wow, that's a great way to put it.
Think about it. If OpenAI or Anthropic project, they need 100,000 GPUs to train their next frontier model, NVIDIA's valuation reflects that massive demand. But if a math breakthrough suddenly makes the software 25% more efficient overnight,
That projected demand curve for hardware shifts violently.
it proves that the future of AI isn't solely a physical arms race of who can hoard the most silicon. It is equally an intellectual arms race of who can design fundamentally smarter, more elegant mathematical architectures.
If you can get 25% more performance without buying 25% more chips, the economics of the entire industry flip upside down. So whether you are a developer looking to optimize the open source models you run locally, or an investor nervously watching the semiconductor market, or just someone tracking the trajectory of artificial intelligence, this paper proves you have to pay attention to the math.
Absolutely.
So let's do a quick recap of the journey we just took. We started with the fundamental flaw that has plagued transformers since 2017. Uniform additive accumulation, the 50 people shouting problem, where standard residual connections blindly pile layer outputs on top of each other, completely diluting the model's early processing.
Right.
Then we explored how Moonshot AI solved this with attention residuals, generalizing depth-wise accumulation to softmax attention. This gave the model a lightweight query vector to selectively retrieve its own internal memory.
A huge leap.
And finally, we saw how grouping those layers into block AttnRes made the whole thing practically scalable, mitigating the memory footprint and leading to a 25% boost in compute efficiency, a breakthrough they gave away to the world for completely free.
And, as we look at where this specific technology goes next, the concept of a model selectively evaluating its own past layers, it raises an incredible question.
Oh, what's that?
Well, if models can now use softmax attention to evaluate the importance of their own past layers, this raises an important question. Could the next iteration of attention residuals allow a model to dynamically skip unnecessary layers entirely based on the complexity of your prompt?
Oh, wow.
Right. Imagine an architecture that realizes it only needs to use 5 layers to draft a simple email, but dynamically activates all 100 layers when you ask it to solve a complex physics problem. By cutting inference costs in real time based on the task, the architecture wouldn't just be selectively remembering, it would be selectively thinking.
That is a wild thought to chew on. A model that knows exactly how hard it needs to think before it answers. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, keep questioning the math, and we will catch you next time.